Hello, youth. Hopefully, you guys are having a good week so far and enjoying the sunshine. The rain is coming this weekend, so get out and get some sunshine. Sorry, this is a day late. Um, yeah, just got away from me yesterday, so I hope this finds you well. This is your midweek encouragement. I'm going to jump right into it. We're in Hebrews chapter 11, and we're still in verse 32. So last week we talked about Barak, and so this week it says, "What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak," and then the next person listed is Samson. So Samson is another one of the judges in the book of Judges, and if you want to read Samson's story, you can do so. It's Judges like 14 through 16. That's the chapters that talk about Samson. And Samson was the strong guy. So he was the one who was a Nazarite, which means he had this vow that he wouldn't cut his hair, drink wine, come in contact with the dead from his birth. And so one of the things that we've talked about is that these judges are not perfect, and Samson is just another case study of that being true. Even though he had this Nazarite vow, he kind of played fast and loose with it, coming in contact with a deceased lion, even though he had the vow, and then even later, he has this strength which he in the book of Judges is equated to his hair being long. He plays fast and loose with that with Delilah, who he reveals his secret to, and then she cuts his hair, and then he loses all his strength, and he's taken captive into by the Philistines. And so there's this tension again of the author of Hebrews putting Samson in the hall of faith, yet when we read Samson's story in the book of Judges, it's like the dude kind of seems not great. And at the end of his life, so Samson has been captured and he's taken to the Philistines, and he's made to be there, and they actually have gouged his eyes out even. And then in his last days, Samson prays to God that God would return him his strength, and that he would be able to crumble the pillars of the place where they were all gathered, and that it would come down in on the Philistines and all that stuff. And there's a few things going on here. So one of the things is this is a picture of something that's coming. And it's a picture to the people of Israel who would be reading this, that they are going to be taken captive, that they might be even afflicted during that captivity, but God is not going to forget them, and that God is actually going to use their captivity to bring some sort of a piece of judgment or some sort of weigh in on the folks who have actually taken them captive. And so Samson's life is kind of a picture of that, but it's also this reminder that even in his last, even in his last days, in his last moments, as they're recorded in the book of Judges, Samson called out to God. And that is an act of faith. And so Samson is put into the hall of faith, not necessarily because of his strong run his whole life, but because in his last days, Samson remembers his God, and he calls out to his God, and he says, "Help, avenge me, please." And so for Samson, it's this reminder that we are not going to have a perfect run as Christians. We're not going to. Sin is still a very real aspect of our lives, and still a very real aspect of the world we live in. And we are going to sin. It will happen. But when we sin, we should run to our God. And Samson is this reminder that in faith, even if we've messed up, even if we've goofed up every point along the line, we ought to turn in faith back to our God and run to him for forgiveness. And even though Samson's prayer is not a lot about forgive me, all this stuff, he reminds us that our faith can drive us to do the 180. That's that idea of repenting, do the 180 and turn back to God when we have messed up. And so it's just another example of the author of Hebrews putting one of these judges and one of these characters who was not perfect. None of these people have been perfect. But Their faith was what made them be into the hall of faith. And so you are not going to be perfect. As a Christian, you are not going to live a perfect life. But you have faith in God, and you have a faith in a Savior who is bigger than your failings. And Samson is one of the reminders that we have of that. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Sorry again, this is a day late. Regular youth group this week. We're going to continue talking about the miracles of Jesus. So join us for that. And then next week is Pie Night. We're getting excited. We do have a bracket. So when you guys come to youth group this week, I'm going to have you guys fill out a thing, and that will determine what pies we are going to consume during Pie Night. We're going to try something different. So come this week, bring a friend, and we'll fill those out and figure out what pie. They'll be announced next week before Pie Night. So hope to see you guys soon. Love you guys. Take care.